Thank you, co-chairs, members of the board. It is my pleasure and privilege to present to you the very first advisory report of the IRM. The advisory report is on the prevention of sexual exploitation, abuse and harassment in GCF projects and programs, learning from the World Bank's inspection panel cases. In producing this report, we have worked very closely with the Secretariat, and I'm happy to note that the Secretariat has filed a very positive Secretariat management response, which I will deal with in a moment. The mandate for the IRM to produce advisory reports comes to us from Decision BBM 2017-10, the updated terms of reference of the IRM approved by the board. The IRM's TOR states that the IRM will report to the board on lessons learned and insights gained from handling cases and from good international practices, and may recommend reconsideration of relevant policies, procedures, guidelines, and systems of the GCF, including environmental and social safeguards. This particular advisory report is based on good international practices. Thankfully, the GCF has not received any complaints with regard to sexual abuse or harassment in any of our projects or programs. On the other hand, 2 such complaints were filed with the inspection panel of the World Bank. The inspection panel of the World Bank is the World Bank's accountability and redress mechanism. Both of these complaints related to 2 road development projects, the first in Uganda and the second in the Democratic Republic of Congo. And in both of these projects, there was a large influx of both foreign and local labor. Some of these workers sexually abused young girls and women in vulnerable and remote villages. And some of the girls had to drop out of school, became pregnant, were raped, and contracted HIV/AIDS. The World Bank's inspection panel, having investigated the case, found that the allegations were true and that there had been non-compliance with the World Bank's own environmental and social safeguards. And they recommended a number of measures to be taken with regard to the survivors of the abuse, but also with preventing such events from happening in the future. Other international financial institutions are learning a lesson from this experience and putting in place preventive measures. We also at the GCF can learn lessons from this experience and adopt measures that could prevent such events from happening in our own projects and programs. As with the World Bank, the GCF also has its own environmental and social safeguard policies. These include the interim environmental standards, which the board decided would be the same as the IFC's performance standards, our gender policy and action plan, environmental and social policy, and the indigenous peoples policy. All of these policies lay the groundwork for due diligence to prevent sexual exploitation, abuse, and harassment in our projects and programs. The board also adopted the SEAH policy, which originally covered the board, the staff, and consultants, and was later extended to third parties. However, at the last meeting in Geneva B.25, the board decided to render inoperative those provisions relating to third parties and requested the Secretariat to make recommendations at B.27 or 28 with regard to the revision of the SEAH policy. Having taken into account the lessons learned from the World Bank's 2 cases, as well as the GCF's own environmental and social safeguard policies, the IRM has made 4 advisory recommendations. Firstly, we suggest that it is in the interests of the GCF to develop a project and program level SEAH risk assessment tool and to provide guidance and support to accredited entities on developing their own risk assessment tools. Such a tool would enable us to flag at an early stage those very few projects that may need further attention. We are also suggesting that the GCF should ensure that it maintains adequate capacity and expertise either through full-time staff or through consultancies regarding project and program level SEAH. Thirdly, we suggest that in the very few appropriate cases that at the project level, we should provide for project and program level SEAH expertise and capacity to deal with potential SEAH events. And finally, we suggest that we should provide guidance to staff and accredited entities on how to deal with project and program level SEAH. In response to the advisory report of the IRM, the Secretariat has filed a very positive and encouraging management response. The Secretariat states that it has already begun to implement some of these recommendations as part of its current mandate. It has also stated that it will consider these recommendations when it advises the board at B.27 or 28 on developing a revised SEAH policy. And finally, the Secretariat has ensured that it will approach this matter in a way that fits our business model, meaning that it will do so without creating unnecessary burdens, delays, or costs for developing countries and accredited entities in developing projects or programs. That ends my presentation on the first advisory report of the IRM. I would be happy to answer questions and provide clarifications that members of the board may have. Thank you for your patient hearing. Thank you, co-chairs.